Hello and welcome to this very special broadcast, viewers. This is Malika Mishra on NDTV Profit, and today we're talking to somebody who is at the center of women empowerment. When you think about especially India as one of the fastest growing economies in the world, what really is taking India to that height? It's about financial inclusion, it's about financial independence, and it's most importantly giving power to that section of the society that does not really just run homes, but also now policies, countries are taking decisions. And today, to give me a much more deeper insight into this arena of financial inclusion, I'm in conversation with Mary Ellen Eskandarian. She's a president and CEO of Women's World Banking since 2006. So impressive, Mary. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. Just for a bit of context, viewers, Women's World Banking is a global non-profit that focuses on expanding economic opportunities for low-income women, especially in developing countries. And that's why it's so important for us to have this conversation, because India is one of the most powerful developing economies today in the world. Mary, my first question to you would be in the context of what we were talking, right? How important has India been an area in your journey so far in women empowerment and financial inclusion, especially since the helm of 2006 when you started handling this role, right? And could you describe how India's trajectory has been since then?
No, I'd be delighted to, and it's great to join you, Malika. As we were chatting before the program, Women's World Banking has been working in India since its founding. But as you point out, it really was in the sort of late 2000s as India was starting to put in place its really extraordinary, visionary digital public infrastructure, establishing the unique identification Aadhaar. There are still so many countries across the global south where women do not have their own identification. There's still 17 countries where a woman cannot have her own name on her passport. She has to be on her husband's or her father's or her brother's passport. So that unique ID for women is an extraordinary first step. And then establishing the Jan Dhan account. So a simple account, but one that was in the formal financial sector. Then we move on to the UPI and so many other programs that have been put in place to support women consumers, women savings, women entrepreneurs. And I have to say, Women's World Banking has been right at the heart of that, making sure that all of those rails are unlocked and made as amenable to women's usage and enjoyment, and that they can take advantage in the same way that men can. And that's been really the center of our work here in India.
Speaking about access, the kind of work that you're doing centers around giving wings to those women who have been sort of away from the formal financial sector. And those women could especially come from rural areas where there's not just, digital divide, I'd say, but there are also cultural and societal barriers. Could you give us some light into what kind of societal and cultural barriers have you had to deal with when you're really trying to get women from rural India on board with empowerment? Because I'm sure talent isn't the issue, it's the mindset sometimes.
Right. No, there's no shortage of talent.
Exactly.
Or ambition in this area. I guess the way we think about it, and I have to say that this is not just something in India. We've seen this in many countries. We think of barriers as being sort of in three different groupings, if you will. They're barriers that the woman herself suffers from, I guess. She's not necessarily as aware as men might be of what opportunities are available to her. She may not have access to digital technology, which is so fundamental to financial access, financial opportunity today. And even if she does have access to the technology, she may not be comfortable navigating the phone or understanding all of the power that is in the phone. The The next set of barriers, and this is where I think India has really outshone so many countries, is in the regulatory structure. So making in policies and laws, making sure that those don't stand in the way for women to be able to move forward. But the one area where I'm afraid we still see India and many countries, and it's so frustrating, is the financial institutions do not see women as the valued customer segment, particularly low-income women.
What do you mean by valued customers?
There is an assumption, a bias perhaps, that women are riskier. So if they are going to apply for a loan, they tend to get a smaller loan than a man who's applying for a loan for a similar sized business.
Let me talk about two aspects here, because you had that in your answer. Let's talk about women as investors and women as entrepreneurs. Women as investors, Mary Ellen, I recently came across this data that was really inspiring and empowering, you know, because even I started investing. And I'd like to actually quote that according to CFA Institute's October 2025 study, 1/3 of India's mutual fund retail assets under management, which is mutual fund retail AUM, which stands at $128 billion US, are held by women. And according to another SBI study published in the same report, 1 in every 4 stock market investors are women in India. Tell me, how do you read this participation? And do you think the pace of that participation is sustainable and it's going to climb the uphill in the coming years?
Wow, great question. And I agree with you. They're really inspiring statistics, because I think for too long we haven't seen really deep retail participation in the capital markets here in India. So how exciting not only to see the growth, but to see women so well represented.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, that makes a lot of sense. Women are very good savers. Maybe the actual amount of balance may be lower than men, but they are much more likely to save regularly, to say, I am going to commit to saving this amount and maintain that commitment over extended period of time. So what I understand is happening is you're starting to see a fall off in bank deposits as money is going into the mutual funds. So it stands to reason that women would be amongst that same trajectory.
I think from a very young age, we're not really taught how to calculate money. And most financial decisions are taken by men in the home. So I don't think women empowerment is just about, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, I don't think women empowerment and financial inclusion is just about giving money in the hands of women. It's also about educating them on how to deploy and use it. And that's what is most lacking. Many women in India may have an attractive business idea, but I think the obstacle really is that they wouldn't know how to implement that idea. And that's where, you know, organizations like yours really come to the forefront of it, really come as a solution-oriented tool, you know. But focusing on the different point that I was talking about, women as investors, great. But, you know, women as entrepreneurs, Mary, so Women's World Bank really focuses on also providing or giving an impetus to microfinance institutions in a way that can help women entrepreneurs and, you know, that and flourish those ideas, business ideas. But recently, in the last couple of years, I've also seen that MFI stress, especially in terms of NPAs, has been a really solid problem. You spoke about how women might have access to money, but they might also require a better collateral to, you know, get that loan, right? Because perhaps most women do not have a stable income. How should we solve that problem? How should we really get more money in the hands of women who need it without really compromising the MFI's NPA?
Well, the answer to your question was in some ways in the question. I think one of the things that Women's World Banking really focuses on everywhere we work, including here in India, is something we call women-centered design. So what's that saying is that there is no one size fits all. And so you alluded to there may not be a stable cash flow.
Correct.
So for an institution to extend a loan that has a very rigid cash flow requirement may not be the happiest outcome. So the smart woman-centered product allows for more flexibility in cash flow, allows for more flexibility in whatever the collateralization of the loan might be, or maybe even not having collateral, but tying the repayments of the loans directly to cash flows. And technology today allows that to happen much more easily.
Your very last comments, if quickly. You wrote a book, and the title really struck with me, which says, "There's nothing micro about a billion women." Give me some insight into what really inspired that thought very quickly in a minute, if possible.
So it always really irked me when I would tell people what I do for a living and who the women I was trying to serve. And they would immediately say, oh, that's microfinance. And it just really struck me that a billion women needing loans, payments, insurance, credit, cards, every financial product that you or I need that could contribute hundreds of millions of bottom line dollars or rupees to those financial services, that they were somehow characterized as micro, really bugged me. And so I wanted to make that point about those billion women in the title of my book.
Very inspiring, Mary Ellen Iskandarian. Thank you so much for your time on NDTV Profit. And of course, viewers, I would recommend all of you to go and grab your version of that book. It's really inspiring. There's nothing micro about a billion women. I'm going to leave you with that quote. Thanks so much, and stay tuned to NDTV Profit. This is Malika Mishra.